You're inside today, Aaron.
Yeah, it's freezing on the deck. Well, Brisbane freezing. Probably not quite Adelaide cold, but
Yeah, I've got Ugg boots on and a blanket warmer.
yeah. Well, there's no one in the house at the moment, so I can sit inside.
Yeah, nice.
You boys missed a good night last night. The Tankstream Labs meet and greet for the new team that's going to be running their new Brisbane office. It was.
Tell us about it. So when we say Tankstream Labs, what is it?
So Tankstream Labs is one of the OGs of kind of the co-working spaces. So similar to River City Labs or Fishburners. They launched out of Sydney. I think they launched in like 2012, 2013. And now they've got multiple locations there. They've got a location in Adelaide, location in Brizzy as of second half of this year. So I was meeting with their team and finding out that Holly from the labs is actually moving over to be their community manager going forward. But it was a good night just catching up with a lot of folks like Nicola from QIC, Pete Laurie, Mark Orchard was there, Brian from Brisbane Angels, Lee. And it was funny, people giving Lee a bit of curry saying, do you work for Tribe now?
Love you, Lee. Yeah. A legend.
Honorary team member. Absolute legend.
Yeah. When is his swag arriving?
It's in the next run with all the mission and accelerator swag.
But the problem is I'd feel bad asking him to wear it because he's always got the best T-shirts. Like I don't know where he gets them from, but they're just always excellent.
Well, maybe we need to get Lee to design the swag that we then give to him.
Yeah, well, that's good. So, and Tankstream, they're owned by Scalare?
They did get acquired last year. I don't know who bought them. Was it Scalare?
I think it is.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're right.
Scalare, who we've spoken about before, I'm always just a little bit confused given they seem to have so many different interconnecting things, but I think shareholders are confused as well because they're now 7 cents down from 25 when we first spoke about them. So
yeah,
when you're a bit subscale on the ASX, it's a difficult life, and when you combine off balance sheet venture capital, labs, services, it's an interesting one to get your head around.
Yeah,
but
totally.
Good to have Tankstream in the ecosystem. So where are they setting up?
Adelaide Street. So just across the road from Hub over near Central Station. And apparently they're going to have a beautiful rooftop space, which they've offered to make available to us for our events. And so that'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, great.
And given the uncertainty, we're still not sure if the precinct is going to continue in Queensland. We haven't got a direction out of the state government yet. But if that does wind up, we've been offered some space in their new space.
I think the way to answer that question, just as a default, if it's coming from politics, think of the dumbest thing and then just forecast that. And then we're home and hosed.
Is that your way of segueing into the budget?
Maybe. Yeah, don't. It is a good segue into the budget because, there is a lot of jumping up and down and I can definitely understand it. But it's like people are expecting career politicians that have certain personality traits that led them to even want to be in that manner, and then personality traits required to rise to the top to actually become an MP. Like what is it that we expect?
Yep. Combined
so let's
with
get into it.
3-year election cycles.
Yeah, let's jump in. So big changes that will affect quite a few people. So CGT 50% discount is scrapped, and so essentially the goal has prior been to try and get income taxation down towards where capital is and businesses historically been taxed. This government's gone, nah, fuck that. Let's keep income tax one of the highest, and let's just bring the capital taxes as up as well. So that negative gearing on existing dwellings, and then they sort of dangle this carrot of lifting of the R&D claim. But I was having a chat to Adrian DeMarco, who most listeners will know as the founder of Tech One. But even he's like giving Tech One tens of millions of dollars in R&D claim rebates and then lifting Atlassian's threshold for companies that don't need it is just insane, and doing almost nothing at the small end of town to help.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. Trying to practice some gratitude. I'm glad it didn't get axed. But yeah, you look at what these big companies are claiming and the numbers, it's questionable use of funds.
I think the big one that people are going to have to get their head around, if it's not a fuck up and if it's true and it stays as is, we got a post from the accountant just saying an emerging issue post 1 July 27 is that trusts will not be able to transfer the 30% tax credit to companies. This makes the effective tax rate in the company 60%. This would mean that insert company name here would not be able to distribute to a company without materially adverse consequences, which a lot of structures are set up in that manner. And then he signs off, we have a year to sort this out. Now, nobody likes paying more tax, mostly because when I look at how it's being spent at the moment, I just don't see how this country's exactly moving forward. But I thought Bronwyn Clune made a really good point in her article yesterday called Capital Pains, always coming out with the good titles. For all the rhetoric last night and over the past week about how central startups are to Australia's future, the budget has handed the industry a bitter pill it cannot swallow. She talks about how R&D tax incentive at the big end of town has been increased, and she talks about early stage venture capital limited partnerships, the ESVCLP regime receiving an overdue re-rating where the cap is raised from 250 to 470 and the maximum fund size is lifted from 200 to 270 million. Again, doesn't really help us emerging managers at this end that are trying to get in. There's some carry loss back. But what she points out is that she says, I'm going to go out on a limb here to say the messaging isn't landing where it needs to. And I think that's right, because the vast majority of bitching and moaning on LinkedIn is about how founders have to pay higher taxes. And I don't think you're going to garner a lot of sympathy that if you've made a $10 million capital gain, that you've got to go and write a whole lot of money out to your average punter. But she says, put simply, the industry has never been able to articulate its value to the average Australian. On that front, however, it can deliver. Tech employs close to 1 million Australians and contributes 8.9% of national output per the latest Tech Council figures. There's sovereign capability story too. In a new world order that has decided to look after its own, a domestic tech stack is in the nationals' interest. There's also the superannuation aspect, which with every major VC allocation tied up to startups, a link the government has just deepened via the ESVCLP caps. And then there's the enduring fact that the economy needs to be productive, sustainable, and an alternative to digging up dirt. And I think that's right. When I sort of read Bronwyn's article and then looked at a lot of the stuff online, bitching and moaning about founders who make extraordinary amounts of money and them having to pay more tax, I think is missing the mark with the average person.
I 100% agree with this. And this has been my frustration for a while. Like back when I was on the board of Startup Oz, I tried to push this. We have a storytelling problem. We haven't sold it to the punters and the voters why they should care about this space. And we spend so much time lobbying politicians. And this is what Startup Oz got wrong, was the time spent briefing ministers, educating ministers. And then what Tech Council is doing now is no different. We need to be selling it to the punters. When the voters demand a different outcome and first understand this and then ask for something different, that's when the politicians will follow. But we can't expect the politicians to change policy when the voters wouldn't support it.
Jack?
I've got nothing to add for this one.
Yeah, there's a few other posts that I saw. Rowan Simpson, chairman and trustee of HOCO Group, said, in Australia, if we increase the capital gains tax, all the smart people will leave. In New Zealand, capital gains is 0% and all the smart people are moving to Australia, which has been true for a long period of time. But I saw this Edward Miller post, and I think he's hit the nail on the head as to why the vitriol is, because deep down, all of us know we're not going to leave. Like fucking off to Singapore and living in an apartment without the beaches and the lifestyle and family and whatever else. I could well imagine doing it for a few years if I knew I was going to have an outsized outcome. I did look at it when we previously listed of buggering off to New Zealand. It's not that easy to just go and do that. But Edward's post was, the people complaining about having to pay more tax to live in one of the best places in the world aren't complaining because they're actually going to leave. They're complaining because they know in their bones they won't. Nothing is more culturally Australian than willingly overpaying for a lifestyle. This is the country of $7 for a side of a quarter avocado, where an ABC journo on strike can still enjoy a couple of $14 schooners of stone and wood, and everyone says, fair enough. When the same people most impacted by these reforms are paying $50K for their kids to go to schools with hyperbaric training centres. The toehold Albo is offering young Sydney siders on the property ladder is a choice between a $1.5 million fibro shack versus an off-the-plan apartment that comes with 2 years in court with the developer's judgment-proof shell company. And we'll gratefully accept it, just like we accepted 6 years of being told we couldn't get to the bottle shop after 10 p.m. because the eastern beaches are beautiful, our hospitals are free, our coffee is good. We have a nationwide pact that it's unreasonable to expect any work to be done between the 15th of December and 16th and 6th of January. The ambiguous CGT changes are worrying you as an investor or founder. Just think about how many slow house sessions you can get for the same cost as a plane ticket to Dubai. It's all going to be okay. So that's one take.
How spot on is it though? It was interesting yesterday after our accelerator session. I ducked in to fill for someone else in the labs pre-accelerator program, and it was on investment readiness. And the number one question, it was about 15 minutes of that time, was how should I set up my structure now? Where should I base my entity in the world? And it was catching up with Mark Orchard last night. He had a mentoring session with some startups yesterday, and same question. It was all about how do I stay in Australia but set up an offshore company?
But isn't it the case now that you'll just have another company in between your asset? So you
I assume so.
Will then own a company that then owns the shares in your entity. So then when you sell that hopefully startup, you're going to be taxed at the company rate, and the cash can just live there whilst you go and build wealth and do other things elsewhere. Isn't that all we're talking about? That gone are the days of individual ownership directly and trusts?
I think so. But it's going to be interesting what people start doing next.
Yeah. And so there is like an unfairness on the ESVCLP. The investor gets 0%. And if you're a founder who held it in your own name and you get a rocket ship outcome after 5 years, indexation is going to be fuck all. So you're probably going to get stuck with 45.5% tax. And that hurts, and that's outrageous. And I don't think it's going to stay like that. Or you just have a structure that means that at worst case you're at 30%. Not as good as the old 22.5%. But we've got a Labor government, and if you don't like it, as the right-wingers would say, you can fucking leave. Michael Batko came up with a good one. He said, so the CGT loophole in Australia is, 1, start a startup, and then 2, start an ESVCLP where you're the LP and then invest back into you at the same time. Buy 99% of the company through the ESVCLP, get 0% CGT, right? Then a whole lot of people chimed in going, yeah, not quite, because one LP can only have 30%, and then there are rules of whatever else, but let's not let the truth get in the way of a good post.
I was going to say, it's not even the 30%, it's the minimum $10 million investment.
Yeah, true.
Like, if you about 30%, it's just what founder's got 10 mil to cough up.
But if a group of founders came together as a collective, set up an ESVCLP fund, held it all through there, they're also mitigating the fact that their startup likely will be the one that fails. Now they've got a portfolio to win from.
Ah.
I can see a founder fund.
That's four co-founders.
Yeah.
It's just communism wrapped up in capitalism.
Exactly.
I love it.
A founder fund.
It's like the ultimate ESVCLP investing in an ESLP sort of singularity doom loop.
Exactly.
We did have a lunch yesterday where we got to the end and we just agreed that all we'd done was bitch and moan. And it was like, well, it's only 24 hours since budget. Let's just wallow in the filth.
It was a jovial sadness.
Yeah, it was. Look, what was it, out of Jurassic Park when Dr. Malcolm says, nature will find a way. I have a feeling we'll find a way. And until the liberals and whatever else sort it out, it is a little bit of a joke having some exposure to property development. What they're trying to spruik in terms of what this would do to supply is such an embarrassment. And if they believe it's truthful, that they're actually dumber than I think they are. But supply is actually nothing to do with all of this shit. And I had to leave yesterday, Aaron, to take a call with Unity Water, because in the Caboolture West area, there's literally 15 of us that control close to 20,000 lots that would have had those lots developed years ago if Unity Water wasn't such a basket case. And there's nothing in here that's going to change that issue. And I think it will actually exacerbate it, because a lot of people buy land and houses for future development on the basis that you can get the negative gearing aspect. But now it's going to be a smaller subset of people that can buy those existing dwellings for future development. And so we may actually get this environment where, as per usual, unintended consequences come along where there's less supply. Having said all that, it had to change. It is the idea that if you have a look at Facebook, it's full of all of these fuckwits that I'll show you how to acquire 40 properties with a whole lot of debt and negative gear. I mean, that is just not productive for society and the intergenerational wealth problems that it's creating. So something absolutely has to change. But as per usual, democracy is the worst system in the world, except for everything else.
That's the perfect line. I was thinking about that yesterday with Unity Water. Imagine the lever that could be pulled if there's just changes at that level. Such a huge bottleneck to supply.
But I do feel, you got to feel for people of your age, Jack, and I'm not yet a boomer, I just look like one, but the people 50, 60 plus that have built wealth on the back of all of these rules that now your generation and younger have been locked out of. They had free uni, you don't have that. They had cheap housing, you don't have that. They had tax-effective wealth accumulation. They get to keep all that. So it's not hard to have a little chuckle, but this is the simulation that we live in. Speaking of democracy, I'll just what is the technical definition of democracy?
Because democracy basically means government by the people, of the people, for the people. But the people are retarded.
Is that?
I crack up every time I see that.
That's, I think that's probably you get the politicians you deserve.
Sadly true.
Vu Tran posted this whilst everybody's clutching at pearls, complaining about tax. The robots continue to come, and he put here Chinese manufacturer Unitree just released. Have a look at this thing. I mean, this is like sci-fi. For those at home, this robot is like 5 meters tall. The human climbs inside it. I mean, we're like, this is the funny thing about this podcast. We talk about stuff as if we're not already totally fucked. Like you are watching the end times are here.
Isn't this just RoboCop? This is not going to end well.
But the only thing, it's going to be a little robot climbing into the big robot, isn't it? Like, it's not going to be a human.
Yeah, there won't be a human in there.
But there's a lot coming out into now. They say never waste a good crisis. And Jason Andrews certainly takes that with both hands. He did a post 40 years ago. Warren Buffett ran a full-page ad in the Wall Street Journal looking to buy American businesses before significant US tax changes became effect. Became one of the most studied pieces in corporate M&A history. Today, he said that they've run a article in the Australian Financial Review, and essentially he's saying, I can't actually read the letter, What he's saying is from 1 July 27, Australian businesses that predate the 1985 introduction of capital gains tax, businesses built by founders who have held them for 40 years or more, lose their CGT exemption on all future growth. It's the first time in 4 decades that this cohort of Australian businesses have faced capital gains tax decision. If you're a founder in this position or you advise one, the ad below, call me directly. The window to act is narrower than 14 months suggest. Good on him for doing it. I don't know if it really makes sense because from the date that it comes out, you have to get a valuation, get your cost base. So you're telling me that a whole lot of intergenerational families that have got these assets are suddenly going to sell up their assets because the future value on top of what the thing's already worth is going to be taxed at a higher rate? Like that?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me.
No, same. And how much valuation distortion is there going to be, like in this rush to revalue?
Well, for the ATO, if they were listening, for the assets that we obviously have to do, we'll be getting multiple valuations at a very fair price.
But we could imagine how other actors might behave.
Yeah. If you weren't going to, what you would do is you would find valuers that are in like the very late stage of their career who don't really need to worry about professional indemnity, and you would pay them just a little bit more to have valuations that meant that you had maybe another decade left to run at the cost base. So,
and this is where we plug our new side business, nameyourvaluevaluations.com.
Yeah. No, I think, on one hand, I think I don't know any good founder that starts a business purely for the dollars. The pain of the dollars come when you create the dollars, and the concern or whatever else happens when you actually have that asset. And what also tends to happen where founders fuck themselves is where they do transactions that they don't actually have the cash to deal with the tax, and they keep pushing the tax down the road. And then that tax issue gets bigger and bigger. But technically, if you deal with your cash flow properly and you deal with your capital gains properly, tax is annoying and painful, but you should always have more dollars left over at the end of the day. But it's amazing how many founders and investors get themselves into trouble through cute transactions or trust distributions, like my darling wife who went to do her tax return one year and said, the accountant says that I've earned $100,000 more than I have, and now I've got this tax bill. And I'm like, oh yeah, I was hoping that I would be able to sort that before that came up. She says, well, have you got the money to pay the tax bill? It's like, no, but I will. So if you want to strain a relationship with your conservative nurse wife who doesn't understand any of this world, that is a good way to do it.
Yeah, we may have had a little bit of a surprise tax bill last year.
Jack's generation's not allowed to tax deduct anything, so
that's all right. No point saving because you can't buy anything because it's all overpriced anyway. So,
yeah,
but what's your vibe, Jack, as our resident young'un? When you watch all this stuff and listen to all this, and do you resent stuff, or do you just is what it is and you don't know what we're talking about? Like, what's your vibe when you see?
My vibe is like, I got to make something worthy to then pay the tax. So if I've got a tax issue, I've obviously done something right. And let's say I'm in the highest income tax bracket and you're paying 49%, whatever that is. Like, you're clearly doing better than the average punter. But then same goes for the company. Like, if you have a big sale and you pay a big tax bill, you've clearly done a good outcome. So like, I'm of the view, like, make more money, like either through income or through your business, and like it will sort itself out. And if the tax is the biggest issue, we all have a choice. You can leave. I'm not leaving. I love Australia. But like, all these changes aren't relevant to me right now because I'm in a salary role. It's not much, like nothing's really going to change. And I think like it's up to us to do that.
There you go. That's fair.
Just
stop being a victim, pull your finger out, get on with it.
But I had like 2 or 3 calls from my mates asking for an opinion on it. I was like, why? Like, none of us are even in a position to really give a fuck about it. And I'm like, if you are, it means you've done well. So like, why are you complaining?
It's a weird trait though, isn't it? Like in America, you could be homeless on the street and still not support new taxes on the rich because you have this belief that one day you too will be rich.
Yeah, that's true. The Americans are very funny in that manner. And They find it hard to understand that we have universal healthcare and we won't bankrupt someone when they have a illness of some description. All of that is quite foreign.
But the one thing from like going to the US, I know they're a bigger market, but there is just so much more wealth. Like it seems like the average person over there is so much better off than the Australian. And I don't know if that's because housing is so expensive here and construction costs are so expensive. But it seems like the average person there has a really nice big family home. They've probably got the F-250. Like it just seems so different to the shoebox in Australia and drives a Camry.
Maybe just keep in mind where we go. We don't go into middle America.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough.
Yeah, we're in bubbles.
Yeah. Well, just speaking of Jason Andrew, I thought this was a good post that's aligned to a couple of things we've spoken about in prior episodes. So he also did a post. Have you ever heard of a founder describing their business as their baby? The early years of building something required a level of devotion that is hard to explain unless you've done it. But I've also seen what this mindset costs when it follows a founder into the growth stage. Hard decisions get delayed because they feel too personal. It keeps the founder in the center of everything because letting go looks like a loss of something precious. It distorts financial judgment because margins get defended on emotional grounds and underperforming lines stick around long after the numbers have made a case for cutting them. The founders actually doing well in this environment are not the ones most attached to the business. They're the ones who have learned to see it clearly. They reframe. I keep coming back to this. Your business is not your baby. It's a machine. It has components, each with a function and a measurable output. When something's not working, the job is to diagnose the system, not to feel it. This is a different conversation entirely and produces a very different decision. Yeah. I mean, we've discussed about it before, that founders whose identities and personalities become so linked to the business, when the business is doing well, they're doing well. And when the business is doing poorly, they're doing poorly, and they can't get themselves out of that rut. And I think this way of seeing the business as a machine, and, you know, we all do well and we all do poorly, but you just don't want the tail wagging the dog. And you want to be able to deal with the shit that you need to deal with independent of the shit that you need to deal with in your business. Otherwise, what ends up happening is you end up chasing losses, and then you end up chasing highs, and inevitably you go too far and you fuck it up.
Yeah, there's a lot in this, isn't there? The identity of a founder being tied into the business, and then your identity correlating to success or failure of the business and the struggle that manifests, and then how that holds you back from making decisions, how it holds you back from owning up your shit bits when it's all going wrong. And being able to separate those two, it requires conscious work to do that. It's not a natural state.
Like, just get into early stage VC and both the business and you can be upset and depressed all the time. And then you don't have to worry about the emotional variability.
Just that one moment a year that we rely on. It's like playing golf when you have that one tee shot that's good and it makes up for the entire rest of the game.
DPI, baby. Now, with all this talk of capital gains, tax is can be a problem, but the bigger problem is making the capital gain in the first place. And there was a note put out by Anthropic. In the US, there is a big secondary market, but it's sort of like an underground secondary market where these SPVs go and buy shares from staff and shareholders outside of the sanctioned secondary rounds. And so, and one of the problems, as I understand it, is like SPVs on top of SPVs. And it's been talked about on 20VC a few times, the belief that there's going to end up being a lot of fraud in these. But Anthropic has come out and said any sale or transfer of Anthropic stock or any interest in Anthropic stock that has not been approved by the directors is void and will not be recognized on our books. We do not permit special purpose vehicles to acquire Anthropic stock, and transfer of shares to an SPV are void under our restrictions. And so this is a post I saw from Zane Zaffer. He says, I know so many people that went being worth more than 100 million to being broke overnight by Anthropic evaluating their shares yesterday. He said himself he was offered to put in $1 million into an SPV that would have turned into 200 million, and he's felt shit for a long period of time. But it looks like if this happens, Anthropic's and invalidation of these SPVs is going to trigger a widespread market disruption of lawsuits. Family offices, venture funds, and employees are on the hook for billions of dollars now. Also, does this technically mean any company could do this? So it's going to be really interesting to see play out. So you're someone who sold, I don't know, at $1 billion vow, you thought you've sold to somebody else. You got their money. Now it's invalidated. You're probably very fucking happy to get those shares back and to repay them their million, 10 million, whatever. And those people are going to be very upset, and they're probably going to be countersuing you. So this is going to be quite a mess.
Huge mess. Huge mess. And it is so ripe for potential like laundering of funds and fraud and so many things. But for the legitimate ones, this is a huge mess.
Yeah. Speaking of Anthropic, I went back to ChatGPT, which I haven't done for a long period of time. This is such a game of cat and mouse, because have you been into chat recently?
No. Jack, you're still working predominantly out of chat, aren't you?
Yeah. I do all my written stuff really out of chat.
So, Jack, have you played with the new agents feature?
Nah, not yet.
All right. Well, your homework between now and next episode is you need to do that, because I started watching. Here, I'll play this, and I'll put it in the comments.
And win and tools, all within this beautiful drag and drop interface that's available directly inside of OpenAI.
So when we were at Sunrise, Vercel did a presentation on their agent building platform, and we're spruiking it as like no code, the cleanest visual. But chat, if you look at this interface, it is a really nice, simple looking interface where you actually can choose from a series of agents. You then set things up, you set up your workflows, drag and drop in this visual planner. And the little play that I had with it, it's much nicer and much more user-friendly than Claude. And so this is the cat and mouse game, and you know, Claude will catch up, so I'm not going to jump ship, but this is the challenge. Like, you write someone off for a little while because they're underperforming. What did OpenAI do? They focused. They cut a whole lot of other shit out. And I think what we're starting to see is maybe the fruits of that labor come through, because when you have a look at the integration of all of that is very clean. So, Jack, that's your homework. You need to build an agent and tell us what it is.
Sounds good.
I love that like interface for building the workflow. That's awesome.
Yeah, and so what I've been trying to do with Claude, as I said in some prior episodes, I'm really trying to automate so much stuff. And so what I've really been practicing getting the skills right that then has the email integration granola used properly. And what it's finally done is that it has forced me to become more systemic and efficient in my document storage. Because if you get that right, everything else is pretty okay. And that's where Obsidian has just made a big difference to helping me visualize and make sure I get that right. And then sitting on top of that, when you've got Slack, when you've got, say, Notion for tasks, but then the benefit of Notion is that it also has good document storage and good inbuilt agents. It means that you could actually choose a stack where for the task follow-up stuff that I want done on the property development aspect, and then with some of our portfolio support for the founders, you can actually just do the little agents inside Notion to do with specific tasks without having to do the complicated stuff in Claude code. And so you then get an environment where, like Tuesday meeting, I think there were 8 different meetings that then I just got finally granola working properly. So there were 8 different transcripts. And at the end of the day, I said, can you give me all of the tasks that were agreed and then reference them against the tasks in Notion and tell me if there are any missing? And there were 12 missing. And so I then have created a skill. I like tasks to be very clear on what and how in detail, when and who. And so it then takes what the transcript was and then converts them into the what, how, when, and who. And then I don't want it to automatically do stuff because some tasks are not really tasks, but I've just said number every task. And then all I've got to do is say, okay, please add task 1, 3, 7, 12, 15, 18 to the system and notify the person that's been added. And then a little agent that when the due date goes off, they will just get both an email and a Slack. And so it's for so much of that kind of stuff. Now, the problem that I'm finding is that it is actually very frustrating to spend the time setting it up. I do actually at the moment feel I'm being less fucking productive because I'm actually having to set this stuff up. I'm hoping we get to a world where all of this investment is such that you actually start to feel it.
I was thinking about this after you shared that, what you're working on yesterday. The next step of that, because I want to build that same workflow now, but the next step of that for me is I need the almost like ubiquitous recording of every conversation all through the day that's capturing the action items, logging it, and through that process. The other thing, doubling down on that, it was probably that call we did earlier in the month with the group of people around how they're using the AI tooling. That was the first time I really understood why the structuring of your data and your files is so important. And I hadn't fully comprehended that before. And the other thing for me, the catch up we had with Greg from Pipeline down the coast on Monday.
Oh, how good was it?
That was phenomenal. So came back and completely killed my OpenClaw rig and now hosting up in the cloud a NanoClaw setup and currently building the second agent in the org structure that will handle our video processing. But
yeah, we were meeting with Greg Jack, and then they've got someone in there called Josh, just an awesome young guy. And he comes in and just starts painting this picture of what he's doing with NanoClaw. And I was like, shut up and take my money.
Yeah. He was messaging me yesterday with more stuff. And I'm like, oh, this is incredible.
Yeah. No, really great guy.
But I agree. So spending so much time building out every time I'm doing something, I'm building a skill now for it to then automate it. It's a huge time sink. My only nervousness is if we off platform to something else because the next thing comes out and have to redo. So I almost feel like we need to make an investment commitment to get the result or the outcome. The other thing yesterday was I just experimented with because I delivered 2 workshops yesterday. I'm like, what if I actually got Claude to build these into a skill that I then give the founder to use? So rather than just being content and then it's up to the founder to use it, more than likely they're going to jump in GPT to, for example, write their emails to the UK anyway. What if we create a skill specifically for that? And so it made me think, like, is the future of a workshop just, don't bother listening to me talk for an hour. Here's my skill. Just use that if you're interested.
Well, I tried to warn them early.
Well, the best bit of yesterday, Don, was you and I talking about all this content, and then one of the founders going, I don't use any of that, but here's what I'm doing with AI. It supersedes your shit.
Oh, yeah. Jake from Sophie AI, it's like the room just went silent, and it was just like, we're wasting our time. Yeah. Well, and Jake's agreed to do a fireside chat at Mixed Place at some point, so we just need to get that locked in. But there's a team that is on the front end of, just amazing stuff. Yeah, that trip to Pipeline. But it's trying to balance that. You got to spend time setting all this stuff up, but then you got to still spend time doing stuff. But now for someone like me, there's an incentive. I can see the world where I can have the meeting, and very quickly after the meeting, all of the meeting's admin is almost fully completed, and then the follow-up is 80% agentic. Certainly the world that I live in, at least. And that is an inspiring place to get to, because if that place is in fact true, my life is a lot happier and a lot more productive doing the things in, portfolio support and venture that I want to be doing. So
yeah, 100%.
All I needed was a good reason.
Show me the incentive.
That's it. All right, theme of the week, Jack.
Aaron, can you go first?
How do I put it? The world can change in an instant, and things that you take for granted, the entire paradigm can shift. And I have that in the context of the budget this week, but also in the context of AI. And yesterday with this other, not our cohort, but the pre-accelerator cohort, just realizing how, I don't want to say unaware, but not founders not seeing the second and third order consequences of where AI is at and what's happening next, and just not being prepared for it, not having an answer because they don't even have the question. And the budget was a reminder this week of just how quickly landscapes can change. And so the natural question from the founders then was, well, what do we do then? If there's so much change in all these things, it's like the capability to solve problems, to adapt to change, to deal with ambiguity and uncertainty while also doing BAU becomes the most critical skill. And so it did make it, for me, it's where we've always focused on. Like, this is the part of building a business that is often unspoken and often the hardest part to get right, but so critical to getting right. And so I just think, yeah, more than ever, that we're just in an accelerating rate of change world.
Yeah, I like that, Aaron. I think to follow on from that, in the theme of the budget, mine would be off the back of the conversations I had and to a few mates yesterday. And it's really like, stop letting the noise distract you from staying focused on what the end goal is. And if the end goal is building a company to sell, like, keep focusing on that. Stop worrying about what is the tax structure going to look like in 5 to 10 years, because the probability of that coming true is still so slim right now. And there's so much work to be done first.
Yep. Words to live by. Mine, I was thinking about that pitch that we had yesterday, which was a second pitch. It was earlier in the year that we, I think, had the first pitch. And Aaron, you pulled up the granola of their first pitch and had all of their forecasts and all the things they were going to do by June this year. And they're not anywhere near any of them. And immediately in our brains, just hold on one second. My unhappy painter is here. Off you in.
Isn't granola worth its money? Like weight in gold.
It is, like, to be able to ask a question of previous calls, like, that's phenomenal.
Have you got the app on your phone, Aaron?
Yeah.
Yeah, even that's so good. Like, if I have a coffee catch up with a founder, bang, put it on, and it just gets everything.
100%. I just want it running 24/7.
Yeah, it's so good. It's saved me so many times.
Yeah, it is just phenomenal. And then to Don's point before, so I am going to switch from Asana to Notion after running through how Don's got his set up, because there are so many more native AI tools and bolt-ons in Notion compared to Asana.
Yeah.
So I think as a team, if we shift over, what I would love is granola running 24/7, like both at home and work combos, capturing the action items into Asana, capturing the decisions into a log, and then attaching all the relevant information like that. That would be a game changer for me, because I dropped, like, even your message this morning about on tax. I'm like, I dropped the ball. I was supposed to ask you a follow-up question about it. I never did yesterday. So now it's not in my Asana, because it's one of those things that should be like a 5-second thing. And so stuff like that gets missed.
Yeah.
But to have something always there that's just logging it, capturing it, and throwing it into a Kanban.
So is that what Don's got set up at the family office, has he?
Yeah, so that's what he's building out. So because so much of his time is obviously managing different managers.
Yeah.
So it makes a ton of sense.
Don, who have you got painting? What family member?
Milo, the painter, who was here last year, and then I've been behind. And then if you're going to do weatherboards on your house and you don't paint them quick enough, what can tend to happen is they'll warp. So then the gaps become bigger. So he came yesterday and he started gapping and filling. And then at about lunchtime, he sent a photo saying some of these boards are warped. So I sent the chippy back, who then came back after Milo had left, and then has just put screws through every board that Milo had previously filled. So he's got to fill it all again. And he wants to talk variations. And I don't really want to talk variations. I just said to him in the end, be fair, be nice. That is going to be the operating rhythm.
Go back to your theme of the week.
Where are we at?
You are mid to your theme of the week.
Be fair, be nice.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I don't know. Yeah, I think I was saying, and so the problem is the founder's credibility. The thing that sort of lost a little bit of credibility was there was no acknowledgement that they were off. And and for me, I think it's just important that there's so much trust in this game of we're trying to find founders that can execute and implement. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to hit budget, and that doesn't mean that you're going to, everything's going to work out linearly. But when you throw out such big numbers that we question, and then we get pushback, and then we meet again, and then there's no conversation, no acknowledgement. It's just like we need irrationally exuberant people that can go out and execute, but you can be too delusional, and too delusional doesn't actually bode well with results. So I'm tenuously linking this back to AI because back in the old days, you could just regularly pitch investors, and we have such small brains as it is, we tend not to remember what was said in the first pitch, whereas now it's actually all laid out in front of us and we can easily see what your implementation cadence has been.
It's a good point. Like, it's kind of like, I'm grateful I grew up before social media kept a public record of everything I used to get up to. But now for founders, every call's recorded, the notes are there, they're searchable. On your next call, they're going to have access to that.
If my wife starts granolaing me, I am in a world of pain. It's like, yes, but you said, I was like, yeah.
That's a good reflection, though.
All right, a few charts. So this one I thought was funny because people are just talking about the infinite capability of Anthropic. But someone's taken a log scale of Anthropic's revenues as a percentage of GDP, because there are some people talking about how long can this growth rate last. But this log scale starts at 0.001, then 0.001, then 0.01, then 0.1, 1, 10%, 100%. And then it just plots Anthropic. And if the current growth rate was to stay in place, Anthropic would effectively have to be 100% of global GDP by February 28. So no, it is probably unlikely that Anthropic's growth rates are going to stay in the manner that they are.
Unless they become the Matrix, which owns all of the world economy.
Yeah, that's it. We all just get... Jack, you sent this, but just the last 3 months of semiconductors, and it's just been insane. Like now, the question is this a continuation of an existing healthy trend, or is this what occurs at the end of blow-off tops? My thinking though is we are so early in all this. Look how fast the tools are doing. We use Claude and ChatGPT more than most, and even we're not using it for a very high percentage of stuff. Like we're just really in the early stages. So, and global equity ETF. So this is going back to 2000. If you just have a look at the values, and this is going exponential. You know, in 2024 it was 25 billion, and now we're over 200 billion. Now, somebody. Humans love to find patterns, especially to sort of forecast crashes. So this is going back to 1996 for the S&P 500. And this looks at the inversion of the yield curve. And then after the inversion of the yield curve, when the yield curve starts to rise, then they've also plotted the Fed funds rates. And they've correlated that after the yield curve inversion, sometime after, when the Fed starts to really drop rates, is when you start to get your crash pattern. And there's a few things here that are lining up. But anyway, if this was actually something that people could use, there'd be a few more people predicting market crashes. This was a chart from Budget Night. So Mikey Metcalf set up a group chat, which was quite funny as we sat there watching the budget as if it was some kind of state of origin game. But this was a chart from the ABC of consumer confidence going back to 2014. The average has been 110 since 1990. We are down at 60. So not all that happy. Oh, this wasn't really supposed to be in there. Yeah, this was the day that I made 10 cents on my solar.
How much are you up so far?
Have fun. Well, because it's been raining, I'm down. I'm having to buy from the grid.
Jeez. How 2015?
Yeah. Have fun staying poor, everyone. Potatoes. I don't know what's happened with potatoes, but this is the European June 26 contract. Has gone from $2 to $18. So potatoes has turned AI, having its AI moment. So this is a chart. Your grip strength predicts your risk of dying better than your blood pressure. Each 5 kilogram drop in grip tracks 16% higher all-cause mortality. The hazard ratio per 5 kilogram reduction in grip strength. So yeah, this is all-cause, stroke, something else. I haven't measured my grip strength in a while. This is a chart of women and men hourly wages by age and gender. So it looks like the ladies actually out earn up until age 29. Then it's like even between 30 and 34. And then women drop off and men increase. And there would be some fairly obvious reasons for that. So this was a test. This is a chart, baseline, pre-screening, preparation, integration, day 90, day 180 of people that were reporting addiction to cocaine. And so they were tracking the usage of their cocaine, and then they did a psilocybin administration, and then they track the days that they were abstinent from cocaine. And it jumps up to 100 and stays pretty close to 100 by day 180. So dealing with some drug addiction, and then even the placebo comparisons, psilocybin did very well. So for those listeners out there that are currently addicted to cocaine, you know who you are. Here's a way out. So here's a chart. There are these important infographics that come up every now and then. This is from Jake Kolofsky. The hard truth from 123,000 women's age preferences set on the app Keeper. To be in a 23-year-old median's ideal range, you want to be under 28. A 27-year-old's median ideal range is under 35, and a 30-year-old is under 38. So past those ages, you're an outlier in her range and not ideal. The Find a Younger Wife plan has a deadline for most people.
I got lucky.
Yeah. Jack silent.
I'm ready for that.
So those are all of the Sharts, bringing you the real data sets that actually make a difference.
The shots that matter.
What are we looking forward to?
We have a night this weekend with our kids. So we are scrambling to think of what do people with our kids do.
What are you looking forward to? Because
that's it.
Okay.
A night with our kids.
But did you say with or without?
Without
okay,
kids.
yeah. I thought you said with.
Exactly, Jack. I'm struggling along with you.
No, without kids. Without kids.
Yeah, say no more. Say no more. I'm looking forward to catching up with the UK, the SA UK mission participants. So catching up this afternoon, and then hopefully just share a few insights about what I've taken away from the missions from previous ones.
Yeah, I'm keen to hear what it's like, Jack.
Awesome. I've set up a skill in Claude that, because we've got our show notes, no, not notes, a run sheet. I've created a skill that once I've done the edit, I'll drop the transcription in, and then it'll just go to the run sheet and pull all of the topics, all of the links, all of the people that we talk about's profile, and then create the LinkedIn post plus a podcast tile for each episode that all I have to do is then check it, and then it can get uploaded to get posted. Because half the battle here is I tend to be that busy having scrambled to try and get the edit done, never get time to market the bloody thing. So if I can use that to actually automate that process, then maybe more people will find out about our humble, there's a word I haven't said for a while, Jack, humble little podcast.
Yeah, that's cool. The other thing I'm looking forward to, so McCulloch Robertson turned 100 this year, and tonight I'm on a panel with Ben and Reese Walker, two of the partners of McCulloch's, talking about the history of their involvement in the innovation ecosystem.
Are you going to tell them about Easy Legal?
Oh, I think we have to, don't we?
So for listeners at home, Mick from Pipeline Capital is not afraid of a stoush, and had such a full plate of claims. He thought, fuck it, I'm going to automate the whole legal process, and has done a really good job. But when I have a look at what we were demoed, if you're graduating as a lawyer, if you have a child that's in law, yeah, game over. Because when you think about it, before you get to court, it's a procedural thing. Because it's affidavits, it's sharing of documents. And on some of these big cases, the bill for disclosure was always huge because your lawyer had to go and put together all these stuff. No, not anymore. It's like 13 seconds. And so the hourly rate lawyer making bank, and it's going to affect the partners, I think, the most. Just give up.
Yep. Game changer.
So on that positive note, I don't think there's anything else.
That's it.
All right, lads. We'll catch
Thanks,
up.
boys.
Bye.